Shall we start or do we wait for 5 minutes before the starting time, because it's 7:25? Dr. Rubal.
I guess we should start at 7:30 only.
Okay, okay. Jo Hukum, sir.
How are you, sir?
I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah.
And I'm
The Professor Gurmeet Man has also joined us. Professor Devrat sir has
good.
also
Good
joined.
evening, Man sir.
Man Sahab, good evening.
Devrat ji.
Namaskar, namaskar. Pandit ji, namaskar.
And Andrew McMahon has also joined us.
After a long time, Dr. Devrat.
Yes, yes. After so long, really so long, Man Sahab. How are you? Good?
Chalo, isi bahane, you know, Rubal has done a great job.
Gathered all of us.
So that way, credit goes to him. He has made us meet after a long time. So how are you, Dr. Pandey?
I'm good, sir. I'm good, sir. And I follow you on Facebook and all. So I get to see all your wherever you go and whatever you do. Thanks to the metaverse, we get to see.
Yes, I keep on throwing certain nonsense ideas.
No. Wonderful, sir. That is wonderful.
No, I'm saying nonsense, in the context that sometimes they are beyond senses.
Okay, so in the inception sense, okay.
So I think there are a few minutes to start, so we can talk, I think, Rubal.
Yes,
we can talk. I just want to inform you all that Andrew McMahon has also joined us.
Okay, so is he there? Andy is.
I'm here. Hello.
Yes. Andrew's very much there.
He's not visible.
We are excited to listen him on Beyond Media Literacy.
He's visible to me. Man Sahab,
yeah, now you are visible. Yes. So I think there is some.
Man sir, I guess you have joined from 2 places, if I'm not wrong.
2 places? No, I should be one.
Okay.
Let me check.
It's one only. It's one. I can see only one.
Okay, then
there is only one, because the link which was sent to me.
What's the time there, Professor McLuhan?
It's just almost 9 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, good morning from.
Yes, good morning from India.
Oh, good evening.
It's good evening from India.
There are people joining from all over. So I am from the eastern part in Bengal. Professor Devrat is also from the eastern part. He's in Jharkhand. And Dr. Rubal, Professor Man, and Mr. Arora and others, they are from the great land of Punjab. So we have a real national congregation here.
That's great. Well, I'm in the countryside, a couple hours east of Toronto.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I'm between farms.
So is it the French-speaking part?
No.
I think he is in Toronto, somewhere near Toronto, or
near Toronto, Ontario.
So it's most of people speak English there, I think. Not man. Yeah. Am I visible, Dr. Pandey?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. I'm not visible to myself. In fact,
I had to change the view to gallery.
Yes.
Yeah.
So as soon as Professor Rubal, my job is only to Dr. Rubal. My job is only to introduce you, and then I hand it over to you, and then that's all. And who will introduce Professor Man for the?
Well, sir, Pandit sir, we can start now.
Okay, so Devratji will introduce Professor Man for the award.
No, I think Rubal would be introducing. As per the schedule, I don't have any details.
Okay, no problem. So welcome, friends, to the 24th edition of the Global Communication Education Conclave. As you would be knowing, this is a 75-part webinar series celebrating 75 years of India's independence. And on the 23rd day, we had a Tamil flavor to the Global Communication Education Conclave, where the chief guest and the moderator and the speakers were all from Tamil Nadu. And I could say Vanakkam then. So I dare say Sat Sri Akal today, because we have Professor Maan, Dr. Rupal, Mr. Arora, Jupinder will join, and Devrat ji is also from Haryana. So we have a distinct Punjab flavor, and this is the beauty of this Global Media Education Council that we have formed recently. It will be over a year in a few months' time, that it's truly diverse, and we have representation from everywhere, from Arunachal to Goa and from Kashmir to Kerala. So on behalf of Global Media Education Council, we are again delighted to present this webinar series to you. And this has been possible only because of colleagues like Dr. Rubal Kanosia, and all the working committee members. So the credit for this Global Communication Education Conclave goes to our super colleagues like Dr. Rubal Kanosia. We have been planning, and we've been doing a number of other events. There is a international academic workshop going on. We have already organized one. Another will be at the end of this month. Also, we plan to organize an offline conference, the first one in the northern part of Bengal. We'll keep you informed, and we hope to do our bit for the field of media and communication as we go along. I have the very pleasant task of introducing our colleague, Dr. Rubal Kanosia, for the day before I hand it over to him. So he's a former journalist, a very well-known media educator, and one of the persons that first comes to mind when we think of younger academicians from Punjab, this generation. So I'm delighted to introduce Dr. Rubal Kanosia. He's presently an assistant professor at the Department of Mass Communication and Media Studies, Central University of Punjab, Bhatinda. Before joining the Central University of Punjab, he worked as the head of the Department of Journalism and Mass Communication at Kanya Mahavidyalaya, Jalandhar. And he was also the course in charge of B Vocational in Photography and Journalism. He completed his PhD on Environmental Communication, Challenges and Prospects in Punjab. He's been associated with Dainik Jagran newspaper, with All India Radio, Doordarshan, and IBN 7. He is also a certified trainer of fact-checking initiative with Google News Initiative and Factshala, which is a media literacy initiative by Data Leads and First Draft USA. He's attended international conferences across the globe, from UAE to Malaysia to Philippines to Taiwan to Canada to USA and many other places. His specialization is in misinformation and society, effect studies, and media usage. He's published with reputed journals like Media Asia, Frontiers in Sociology, and with JCCC and AGPOR. He has had 13 papers published in reputed Scopus Index, Web of Science journals, PubMed journals, etc. And as I said, a very well-known face, a wonderful human being, and a wonderful colleague to have. So thank you, Dr. Rubal Kanosia, for organizing this 24th webinar. Looking forward to a wonderful day ahead. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Uma Shankar Pandey. Thanks for introducing me. And this is a wonderful, the beginning of the evening of our 24th day of GMEC. And today we have distinguished guests and the panelist and the eminent media educator and the session chair. It is indeed my pleasure to introduce to you with our today's chief guest, Shri Rajiv K. Arora ji. He's a station director, All India Radio FM Bhatinda. Rajiv Arora ji, you're welcome in this program. And then we have my own dear friend, Mr. Andrew McLuhan. He's a researcher, writer, and speaker based in Prince Edward County, Ontario, Canada. He's the director of McLuhan Institute and the authors of Written Matters book. And his one book, he has just released a call for proposal. And for his book, this is called Beyond Media Literacy. And in India and in South Asia, we have been discussing about media literacy concepts. And I get very much fascinated when I heard about this Beyond Media Literacy. What is Beyond Media Literacy? What we can hear, we would love to hear from the Andrew about it. And then today, in today's event, we have Professor Gurmeet Manji. He's a senior professor, former director of Center for Advanced Media Studies and Educational Multimedia Research Center, Punjabi University, Patiala. And he was the head of the Department of Journalism and Mass Communication at Punjabi University, Patiala. A very senior professor, and he's today from GMEC, the Lifetime Achievement Award is given to him. And then we have the gracious presence of Mr. Jupinder Ji Singh. He's a special correspondent with the Tribune, he's an investigative journalist, writer, and he has written 5 books on various issues. And presently he is associated with the Tribune group. And in this event, we have as a session chair Professor Devrat Singh Ji. He is a former dean of School of Communication, Central University, Jharkhand, Ranchi, India. I welcome you all, and now I request our chief guest, Shri Rajiv K. Arora Ji, to address the gathering.
Thank you, Dr. Rubal. I believe I am audible to all of you.
Yes, sir. We can hear you.
Okay. Very good evening. Namaste, Sashikal, Adab, and good morning, Andrew McLuhan, sir. First of all, I express my gratitude to Dr. Rubal Singh Kanodia ji for making me the part of this webinar, and that too with a very prestigious tag of chief guest. Well, I believe this tag I don't qualify to have, because in this battery of learned people, my CV gets finished in 1 sentence, and that too my designation to get, I did nothing. It was simply out of promotions I reached this position. So anyway, usually chief guests in so-called offline functions, they are offered seats in the first row and given bouquets. But I believe in today's webinar, all the participants are chief guests, very learned people, you all are. So now we come to our today's topic, going beyond the media literacy. Honestly speaking, as a radio broadcaster, and that too of a local radio station. Local radio stations were established almost, say, 40 years back. It was planned to be established at every district headquarters with the objective of becoming a link between district administration and local people or masses, common people, public. But anyway, times changed and technology also changed. But challenges are very much there. So what I was saying, this term media literacy, we never used, and strangely, in our workshops, the workshops organized my department or my organization, there was hardly any mention of this word media literacy. And what was the need of media literacy? This thing I understood during COVID lockdown, when I undertook the radio broadcasting in all capacities, as a producer, as a announcer, as a RJ, and everything, whatever radio needs. So that was a period when there was a tsunami of all types of information, misinformation, disinformation, and these things have been going on round the clock. But I never had felt the disadvantage or challenge posed by this tsunami of misinformation, particularly on social media. But anyway, to the best of my capacity, without any training, without anything about, knowing about this media literacy, I accepted this challenge. And most of the time was spent to counter all those things which were being spread on social media. Foremost challenge was to convince people that there is a thing called COVID or Corona. People are not ready to believe. They spread on social media the rumor or wrong thing, misinformation, that this is a conspiracy of our government, this is a conspiracy of the politicians, administration, and all types of nonsense. And strangely, masses were believing that nonsense stuff. And then many offers were made about treatment of Corona, then prevention of Corona, then all types of things which we, I think, made every effort to counter those information and brought about truth or reality or facts to the listeners of our radio station. Then I believed, maybe I might have used some other words instead of media literacy, that there is a need of a campaign by the government to, educate the masses or the consumer, media consumer, should I say, to enable them to find, sift what is truth and what is false informations. And so for this traditional media means these satellite channels, so-called national news channels are concerned. Unfortunately, in the public perception in India, these TV channels, I say in the perception of public, these TV channels, news channels, national channels, so-called national channels, are facing vertical division. One segment of media is being referred as Godi media, means the media which is perceived to be supporting the government of the day. And second part is perceived to be the anti-ruling party media. Now, unfortunately, both are losing their credibility. These two categories are fast losing their credibility. And a vacuum which is being filled by social media or the so-called YouTube channels, news portals. Of course, some of the so-called news YouTube channels are being run by some senior journalists also. But majority of these channels, if at all I call them channel, they are being run by the people who hardly qualify to be the mass communicators or be the part in the field called journalism. So all types of distortion of history, distortion of facts, all these things are being done. And nowadays, people watches what they want to watch. People believe what they want to believe. People see what they like to see. So in this situation, this effort by this organization, Global Media Education Council, will go a great, it was need of the hour. I express my heartfelt thanks to you, Dr. Rubel, because I have joined, yes, you as a mark of respect, declared me chief guest, but trust me, here I've been in the capacity of a student. I know very little about this thing, methodology, how to educate our viewers, our listeners, our audience. Yes, I did whatever I did during that period through hit and trial method. I have no formal training. I never attended any seminar on the subject. I never attended any lecture. So I'm lucky to be the part of this webinar, which will go a long way in teaching me being a radio broadcaster. And masses are associated with the AIR FM Bathinda. And we may call it a blessing that in Southwest Punjab, All India Radio or AIR FM or Akashvani FM Bathinda is the only and only FM channel which caters to the needs of this area. And interestingly, perhaps Dr. Rubel will endorse my claim that we enjoy a certain amount of credibility also, because All India Radio always enjoyed. A very interesting thing, Dr. Rubel, Doordarshan and All India Radio never called Godi Media. Very interesting. Despite being we are a government organization, we are never
that's a wonderful safety
that.
Yes.
Least of all India Radio Bathinda. So I spoke to my boss today and said, sir, I am going to attend a workshop. And he requested me to share some facts with him. Anyway, I'll do that also. So the thing is, we have to learn yet about media literacy, and these intellectual people like Andrew McLuhan sir and Professor Gurmeet Manji, Professor Devrat Singh ji, and all other people whose name I may not mention, they will go beyond media literacy. So I suppose need of the hour is to educate our audience, educate our listeners, educate our people who consume these things, and they should be enabled. I'm talking about masses. Yes, this organization, Global Media Education Council, is doing a great job in educating the trainers, journalists, practitioners, and all that, academicians. But need of the hour is to educate the masses. And we will have to prepare a blueprint, Dr. Rubal Kanogia, to make our audience, our readers, our viewers, our listeners, how can they distinguish between information and misinformation or disinformation? We'll have to teach them. And some media houses or some media units or some platforms will have to earn that credibility, which may quote, see, that news has come from that source. I give you an example, and then I will seek your permission to leave. I mean, close my speech. Sometime in 1986, a bomb explosion happened near a temple at Bathinda. Those were the days of terrorism. And coincidentally, the shop of a Sikh shopkeeper got burnt down due to short circuit. And BBC, in its morning news bulletin, declared that terrorists exploded bomb near the Hindu temple, and Hindu groups, or those groups of Hindu people, they burnt the shop of a Sikh shopkeeper, though it was a short circuit. I happened to be there. I was student at that time, and I had been at Bathinda during leave vacation. Deputy Commissioner and SSP are claiming, see, the shopkeeper is saying the shop was burned due to short circuit. You can send an expert to confirm it. Public had gathered there. But people were saying, no, we can't believe Deputy Commissioner. We won't believe even the shopkeeper because this news has come from BBC. This was the level of credibility during those days, and perhaps today also. So anyway, by afternoon, that matter was resolved when BBC apologized and all that. Later on in evening bulletin also, they clarified how did that news went on air, or what happened, how that mistake happened. Anyway, so this type of credibility is very, I mean, a rare thing to be enjoyed by any media house nowadays. So that credibility has to be created. We can say, see, All India Radio is saying this. Why can't you believe it? So for that, we need a learning. For that, we need lessons on the subject. And I hope today I'm going to benefit out of this webinar. So thank you all for giving this least educated person on the panel for giving this opportunity and giving this respect, this status of so-called chief guest. Thank you, Dr. Rubal, and all the panelists. Thank you all. Thanks a lot.
Mr. Rajiv Arora has been always kind and humble, but at the same time, he is very courteous and spontaneous and openness for his ideas. And particularly when it comes to dialogues, being into government system, we understand it's very difficult to speak about this word, Godi media, which he just mentioned. But same time he mentioned that we have been receiving, like the All India Radio and Doordarshan have been receiving funding from the government of India. But same times the same word is not being used for them. So it tells that how the broadcasting in India, how they are progressing and how they are processing their, how they are doing programming and how they are handling the programs with the greater credibility. So this summarizes everything about your personality, and I must convey to all the participants about your presence in the Bathinda. You mentioned it's local radio station, but this covers more than this 80 kilometer area. It is more than 80 kilometer area, if I'm not wrong. And these districts are.
We are sorry to interrupt you. We are available on nowadays app also on News on Air and other apps also.
The medium is changing, so you are available on app also. Andrew McLuhan is smiling when I spoke about medium word. So now I request. This is a great opportunity for us to listen Mr. Andrew McLuhan on this occasion, because I must mention about, if Andrew allow me to mention about about his grandfather and about his legacy also. I exactly remember that when we were a student of MPhil, and we used to ask by our teacher, Professor Devra Singh, why don't you read the books of Marshall McLuhan? And there was a particular book on Mr. McLuhan, that hot and cold media. Let us discuss about it. And Andrew, I must tell you that in India, we have an exam. We all, after our graduation, you call it graduation and we call it post-graduation here. That after post-graduation, if we want to enter into teaching as an assistant professor, so we are supposed to appear in UGC NET exam. That is being conducted. Nowadays, it is being conducted by National Testing Agency, NTA. Otherwise, we call it UGC, University Grant Commission. They conduct a national eligibility test. And I remember when I was preparing for this exam, Professor Devrat used to ask me that keep reading McLuhan's concepts. The most of the paper would come from that area. So that is the legacy, like we have here. And I must convey to you that how we respect Mr. McLuhan. This is beyond, this is, we cannot express into words, but most of the media scholars, they are very well aware of Mr. McLuhan's contribution. And today only I was checking his citations, and his citation has gone to 1,12,000, more than 12,000. And the H index is 86. So even the big university in the west and in the eastern side, their total H index and citations are not like this. So he's institution itself, like he's Marshall McLuhan is institution itself. So we have a great respect for him. And I must convey you all about Mr. Andrew, that he assisted Dr. Eric McLuhan. And Andrew is a researcher, writer, and orator. He has been taking lectures at various universities of Canada and in some other countries. Just before this seminar, he was telling me that he has a teaching assignment in Russia. And he has been teaching at Marshall McLuhan Catholic School in the University Toronto, Ontario. He has been delivering a lecture at University of British Columbia and the Carleton University and Concordia University, Montreal. And Andrew is the director of the McLuhan Institute in Toronto. And now over to you, Andrew, if you could tell us something about the beyond media literacy. We have been talking about media literacy in India, but when this idea came to me, when you sent me this call for proposal about this, your new book, which is supposed to be available in 2023. So I was excited to learn about it, that we have been discussing media literacy, and now what is beyond media literacy. So now over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Kanozia. I appreciate the invitation today, and good evening to everyone there in India. It is just morning here in Southern Ontario in Canada. Thank you, Mr. Aurora, for your comments. It's good to hear. I have to say that I must be the least educated among us, possibly being the youngest, but actually my studies have been more informal than formal. I began studying with my father, Eric McLuhan, in around 2010 or so, and just very informally working as his assistant and traveling with him when he gave speeches, and just getting more and more interested in my family's work. Marshall McLuhan was my grandfather, but he died when I was very young, only 2 years old or so. So much of what I've learned has been since then. Gosh, this is a very big topic with not a lot of time, which is maybe a good thing. Marshall made a comment at his speech once that for the speaker, there never seems to be enough time. Time moves too fast, and for the audience, it moves very, very slowly. So perhaps a limited time is a good thing because it forces you to be a bit concise. Marshall McLuhan was an educator. As Dr. Kanozia mentioned, I'm director of what I call the McLuhan Institute, which I started just about 4 years ago in order to carry forward the legacy of Marshall McLuhan, basically because it didn't exist. My father worked with Marshall from the mid-late 60s up until Marshall's death in 1980. And then from 1980 onward, just carried on his own, pardon me. But there was no formal institution from the family anyway to carry on the work, which is a very specific approach to studying media, which I'll get into in a few moments. But it's interesting that this is the 75th anniversary. 75 years ago, 1946, Marshall started working at St. Michael's College at the University of Toronto, where he would continue for the rest of his career. And it was there a couple years later that he met Edmund Carpenter. And Carpenter and McLuhan together got a Ford Foundation grant to start a seminar in culture and communication. And as a result of this, they produced a journal called Explorations. Explorations ran several years, and I think nine or 10 volumes. And it was an interdisciplinary, people from economics, psychology, sociology, English literature, all gathering together to study the effects of technology or media. So Marshall was an educator. His field was English literature, poetry in particular, modernist poetry, Pound, Eliot Yates. And the really interesting thing, which I think remains fascinating, is that Marshall came to study technology through his study of literature. In fact, he first started looking at popular culture in an attempt to get to know his students in the United States, which he felt there was a gap between them. So he took the techniques he learned for studying literature and poetry and applied them to popular culture, to advertisements, to comics. The result of this was in 1951, a book called The Mechanical Bride. And then what he did was he took these same techniques and moved them beyond the content and to the very technologies themselves. And he started to look at the form of communication. He started to look at radio and television and telegraph. And he would later expand beyond communications technologies and look at every human innovation in technology, from your toothbrush to toothpaste, from breakfast cereal to clothing. Everything that people do and create was available for his media studies. One of his first projects in trying to comprehend media was in the late 1950s. He was approached by the National Association of Educational Broadcasters in the US to develop a curriculum for media studies for high school students. This was in around 1958. And in 1960, the result of his work was published in a very, academic kind of report called the Report on the Project in Understanding New Media. During this time, Marshall first said the medium is the message in 1958, much earlier than people assume in 1964 with the book. Now, following this report in 1960, Marshall spent the next several years revising and refining and transforming it into a more popular work, which would become Understanding Media, The Extensions of Man in 1964. And this is a book that gets a lot of coverage, a lot of, I don't know if this is the book Dr. Kanozia mentioned he studied, but it's almost required reading in a lot of courses. Just over a year ago, I use Twitter a lot, and I suggested on Twitter that if you're going to teach Understanding Media, you have to give it at least a semester, because a lot of introduction to media communication courses will cover it in maybe one class or even part of a class. And I just felt that the book was too big to gloss over that quickly. So I said, if you're going to do it right, you have to do it in at least a semester. And Twitter being Twitter, somebody responded, well, you should do that. And I said, well, because I'm not a professor, you understand. I do a lot of teaching. I'm invited to give guest lectures in classes like I am doing this week for a friend in Russia and across North America and the world. even in India. But I didn't study to be a teacher. I didn't go to university even. So I consider it an honor to be asked. However, I'm not attached to an institution. But I replied, okay, well, my interest in McLuhan studies is not the theoretical, but the practical. And what I was taught by my father was that understanding media is, well, it is two parts. Part one is 7 chapters. And as my father told me, they're tools. The medium is the message, hot and cool, hybrid media, narcissus as narcosis. There are techniques for looking at technologies. Part 2 of the book is 26 chapters, and it's not a coincidence that there are 26 letters of the alphabet. And these are using those tools from part 1 to look at specific technologies like radio, comics, games, television, weapons, all sorts of things. So my interest being in what's practical, I said, okay, I'll design a curriculum to look at the first 7 chapters. And if I get 10 people to sign up, I'll do it. And, you know, honestly, I was betting that 10 people wouldn't sign up. But I quickly had more than 10 people interested, and I was kind of stuck with it. So I partnered with an outfit called Gray Area in San Francisco, who do a lot of technology education online. And I developed this curriculum and I taught it, and halfway through, the students kind of insisted that I do the rest. So I just finished this last week, the 37th class, going chapter by chapter in 3-hour classes with a really in-depth look at understanding media, the extensions of man. So I'm very interested in media education, especially in what's practical. That's been my focus. This idea of beyond media literacy, Marshall McLuhan didn't use the term media literacy. In fact, at one point in Understanding Media, he talked about media illiteracy. Marshall used the term media ecology. And Marshall took a different approach to the study of technology, an environmental approach. And he said that after Sputnik in 1957, ecological thinking became inevitable. And indeed, it became inevitable for his own studies. And his idea of media ecology, which he introduced in Understanding Media and earlier, is the idea of looking at the environment of effects created by technologies minus their content. For example, I pulled a couple quotes from this book. This is a wonderful book, Letters of Marshall McLuhan from 1987. Just a fracture of the letters he wrote, but he said, right here, to say that any technology or extension of man creates a new environment is a much better way of saying the medium is the message. Moreover, this environment is always invisible, and its content is always the old technology. The old technology is altered considerably by the enveloping action of the new technology. And he says, over and over, I've talked to groups and individuals about new technology as new environment. Only the content shows, and yet only environment is really active as a shaping force. And I like this bit. The fact that literate adults in our world have very simple-minded ideas about media does not prevent these media from having very complex results on psyche and society. I've been trying the last couple of years to find out how to fit McLuhan into media literacy because it seems absent. And this is odd because when you speak with people involved in media literacy, they know who Marshall McLuhan is, and they kind of claim him as one of the figures important to media literacy. And yet his ideas of how technologies operate don't seem to have a place in media literacy. And I'll explain what I mean. A short time ago in the spring, I wrote a piece called Macro Media Literacy. You know, maybe if I'd been a little more thoughtful, I could have called it meta media literacy, but we can't be too ahead of our times. In any case, this was one of my first attempts to try and fit McLuhan into media literacy. And so I looked at what people consider to be media literacy. And here are a few definitions. A commonly cited definition of media literacy was created at the 1992 Aspen Media Literacy Leadership Institute. Quote, media literacy is the ability to access, analyze, evaluate, and create media in a variety of forms. Okay. It's also called a media and information literacy, critical media literacy. commonsensemedia.org says media literacy is the ability to identify different types of media and understand the messages they're sending. Or Critical Media Project builds upon the previous media literacy efforts in several ways. The emphasis on critical media literacy means that we focus more explicitly on analyzing the politics of representation in media. In these examples, the focus is very obviously on content, specifically on the intent of the creators of the content. So it's a kind of propaganda studies where you're trying to determine what the people are trying to say between the lines. Maybe they're trying to convince you of ideological beliefs. Maybe they're advertisers trying to get you to buy products. And this is important work. I want to be very clear that I certainly have nothing against media literacy. In fact, I believe it's very important, especially for children, to understand that you know, we're being manipulated by people using these various channels to shape our opinions, to influence our purchasing habits. We need to know this, but this is not the total story. As Marshall said, it's the environment. So regardless of whether we're talking about media literacy right now, or whether we're gathering to talk about, you know, the latest in veterinary medicine, or, you know, Jello molds and vintage, whatever, regardless of what we're doing with this right now, Zoom in the last year and a half since Corona has allowed people to congregate and get together, to have seminars and conferences, to conduct classes and communicate and educate. And the effect of that has been very profound. I think it's obvious that going forward, we won't be doing things the same way. Conferences will remain largely online or have largely online components, and there won't be the same pressure on people to travel and things like this. And this has happened regardless of what we're using the technology for. It's the same with the telephone. It's the same with the telegraph or any other major media. While people are busy making content, even while they're busy being critical of content, technologies are quite busy rearranging our senses, our brains, and our societies. And this was Marshall's point, that the effects of technologies happen on two major levels, on the personal and the social. So our exposure to different technologies affect our senses. And when you affect one sense, you affect all the senses. And that affects who we are. It affects our preferences. You know, it affects our tastes in not only content, but clothing and music, entertainment, but also in our purchasing habits, in what is conducive or what is abrasive. And then there's societal implications, how cities were rearranged because of transportation, because of the railroad, because of the highway. This happened regardless of whether you were driving or being driven, or where you were driving to. As Marshall said, the meaning and effect of a medium is the subtotal of all its impact upon psyche and society. So Marshall enlarged what we consider to be a medium or media. And if you apply media literacy to clothing, media literacy doesn't have much to tell you. Or if you apply it to footwear or to watches or something like this. But these are all human technologies and innovations that have profound shaping influences on our lives. The watch and the clock, for example, radically changed how we perceive the day, how we operate, our work and study and socialization habits. And this is kind of regardless of any intent behind the makers to influence our behavior. So for me, we need to go beyond media literacy to come up with formal ways of studying these wider environmental effects of technology, but more importantly, on educating people. I do some work in younger classrooms, grade 5 and 6 students, where we look at the effect of the smartphone. And kids that young, almost all of them have one, but they don't realize how entrenched they are in their lives. When they wake up in the morning, it's because their alarm on their phone is going off. And, they check their social media and TikTok and, maybe not Facebook, but Instagram, whatever they're into. They go to school, and when they're on the playground, they're still on their devices checking things. They check the weather. If they have to add something, they open the calculator app. And when I suggest to them that imagine tomorrow you wake up and your smartphone doesn't work, and neither does your friends, and they're never going to work again. What does this mean? And they gasp, they take a breath, and you can hear the shock, because they can't imagine a world without their smartphones. They can't imagine how they would do anything, how they would wake up in the morning, how they would talk to their friends, how they would find out any information whatsoever, how they would do most of the tasks they would do. They would be helpless. And it is a shocking thought. Of course, the older of us here know that we did almost everything just fine before, maybe a little slower, but there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. Still, we don't think of these things until they're removed from us. That's what Marshall talked about, this invisible environment of effects, because so long as everything's running, we don't notice them. And that's where we need to go beyond media literacy. So with some colleagues in Germany, we put out this proposal, call for papers, for this volume to come out in 2023 called Beyond Media Literacy. And I invite anybody here, you don't have to be an academic, although it might help, to consider how to go beyond media literacy. What does media literacy mean if we take out content? If we take out those concerns and we look to the environment, how do we study and how do we educate each other on these effects? And Dr. Canozia hopefully will put up the little thing, contact information. I can always be reached, andrew@themcluhaninstitute.com. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. You can reach out to the McLuhan Institute over Twitter, Instagram. I have a YouTube channel. I'm pretty easy to find. So I want to thank you very much for having me here today and embracing this topic, which I think is one of the primary concerns of our time. It's on a level with our climate crisis. This is a mental climate crisis, a sensory climate crisis. And I really appreciate your perspective on it. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Andrew McLuhan, for your brief talk about Marshall McLuhan's work and how you are taking it further, and how you are checking the impact of technologies on the environment, and particularly on that we all are affected with this, and we all are going to get affected with this environment. Our life is being shaped with the impact of these technologies. And yesterday also I was reading a paper, research papers, that was on the informationalization of race, the impact of communication technologies on the human genome in the digital age. So I can see that how influential this concept is, that how technologies are impacting us, and particularly now the scholars have started, the scholars from the human genetics, they started checking the impact of the information on our genes and the genetics of human beings. So thank you very much, Mr. Andrew, for your brief talk and for your valuable time. Now I request, now it's like I want to invite Professor Gurmeet Man. Somehow he gets disconnected, but now we will have the presentation first. So I am requesting this young scholar. She is Aisha. She is presenting her research findings on the social media photo posting addiction. Again, it's like close to the like she's close to the topic. The students and the people, the youngsters got addicted towards this photo posting syndromes. So over to Aisha.
Good evening, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be speaking again amongst such accomplished elderly people. Please forgive me. I'm really nervous. And can I just share my presentation, sir? Is that?
Yes, you can. Andrew, I must mention to all the panelists and the audience members, like this in GMEC, we have started this initiative that young scholars and the researchers, they can present their research findings. So we want research to be taken on the graduation and undergrad and postgrad level. So the people, like the student, must be introduced with the research concepts at the early age.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Aisha Hedges from Presidency College, Bangalore. My research topic is social media photo posting addiction. Okay. Introduction. Social media photo posting addiction is a repeated behavior of clicking pictures and uploading it on social media, where it affects the daily routine of a person's life. Clicking pictures is no longer occasionally, but has become a habit to the people. So here, as I'm mentioning, it's no longer occasionally, which means there is a platform, social media platform called Snapchat, where every day people exchange pictures. Either it's food, drinks, maybe themselves. So it's become like a habit to everyone that they keep sharing pictures every day, and it is no longer occasionally. And this topic, as I have checked in Google Scholar, there is nowhere as this topic. And I came across this topic because recently when I went out with my friends, we had ordered a lot of food in a restaurant. And, I just took a bite of pizza slice and I started eating. And my friends, everyone started yelling at me saying that we had to click a picture. Why did you even eat the food? So just imagine that it is so abnormal and people think it is normal to behave in such a manner. Before maybe we used to all pray before eating food, but now we have to click a picture before eating food. So it is abnormal and people are not realizing that this is abnormal. And the objective of my research are 3 things. That is, 1 second. Asha, what's can you, why is this thing coming?
Aisha, we can see your slide, the objective slide.
Okay, sorry. First objective is to analyze the social media photo posting addiction. The second one is the elements that constitutes of photo posting on social media. And third one is to create awareness of this addiction. I'm not able to move my slides.
No problem, Aisha. You can tell us about your findings.
Okay, sir, but
For that, you need your
can I?
slides. This is how the technology is impacting
Okay.
us.
Yeah, true. Okay, can you see, sir, now?
Yes.
Okay, methodology that I've used for my research is that this study follows a mixed design, that is qualitative and quantitative research methods are used. The sample size is 50 participants for quantitative and the sample size for qualitative was 8 participants. And the sample technique was random as the age group was from 17 years to 45 years and gender was male, female and others. The tool used for data collection was questionnaire where people had to answer to the questionnaire. A Google form was sent and a semi-structured interview scheduled. That was the qualitative research, and the data analysis was done using descriptive statistic methods and a thematic network analysis. The main findings were 70% of the participants are involved in taking pictures. So here it shows the percentage, and the 94% of the age group of participants were young adults, that is from 17 years to 30 years. 88% of the participants answered that they feel nothing when they're unable to post. This shows that there is no emotions involved, as it becomes more like a subconscious activity where there is lack of realization. Here people say that they don't post pictures, but they click pictures. So they here in my first finding says that 70% of the people click pictures, and it has become like a subconscious activity that where they're not even realizing that they're clicking picture. It has become so normal, it has become like brushing teeth and taking bath. That is where so normal, like clicking pictures has become so normal and it's become a part of their life. And the next one is the participants, there were 3 questions asked: taking pictures and how and how often do they post pictures, and what is the most rewarding thing when they post the picture. So here the participants agreed to clicking pictures, but they were hesitating to agree for posting the pictures on social media account. But when asked about the rewards, they were ready. 46% of the participants were telling the rewarding thing was sharing experience to them. So sharing when they are not posting pictures, how can they share their experience? So there is a discrepancy between 2 questions here. People are stepping behind in order to agree to that they are posting pictures on social media account. So this again opens another window to research further. And the 5th one is taking photos of surroundings or events of life has become more like a habit, where it appears that there is lack of self-awareness among young adults. So here people are not living the moment, they are capturing the moment. They are so much into capturing moment than living the moment and doing things in the moment. And the 6th one is there is a large number of participants who have an urge to follow photo trends. On Instagram these days, there is a photo trend going on, the aesthetic pictures and sky obsessive. They're obsessed with the sky, so they post sky photos. And people, the other people also want to be validated and want to be involved and be called to be part of the large social group. So they follow the photo trends. So this was also seen in large number of participants. And this is the thematic network analysis, where social media photo posting addiction is the global theme. The organizing theme was reasons and rewards. And the basic theme here I have given is no reason. People, when I interviewed them, they said that they don't have a reason to post pictures. When there is no reason to post pictures, why are they doing it? So this shows that it is a subconscious activity, that they are doing it subconsciously, so they don't have a reason to do it. And the next one is the photo trends, as I mentioned earlier. And the rewards are sharing experiences and positive comments. So as they are getting positive comments and they're sharing their experience, they are more indulged in posting pictures. So yeah, this is the references. This is the references only for there is no reference for social media photo posting addiction, but yeah, there is reference for social media addiction, selfie addiction, and all the other kind of addictions, but not photo posting addiction.
Thank you,
So,
Aisha.
thank you.
Your presentation. I'm happy to see. May I know in which class you are studying, Aisha?
I'm in final year BA triple majors degree, psychology, literature, and journalism.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Aisha.
Thank
for
you so
this.
much, sir.
And now I request the second presenter. She is Shalini M. Now she is presenting her paper. Shalini, welcome to this event.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you, sir, for introducing me. First of all, I'd like to thank all the coordinators of GMAC to for giving me such an opportunity, and my institution for for opening up such a doorway to further my academics. So I'm really immensely privileged to present a paper in front of such eminent personalities, and I hope I can do my best here. I shall, 1 second, I shall present my, okay. I hope everyone can see my slide.
We can see you. Your presentation.
Okay. So my study was the impact of social media use on the psychosocial well-being of women during the COVID-19 pandemic. And it was done as a part of my final year MA thesis with the objectives to understand whether there has been an increase in the use of social media among women, and if it has impacted in a degradation of their mental well-being, especially during the pandemic. To find out the combined impact of the pandemic and social media on the psychosocial well-being of women, and to find out whether the pandemic-related stress has caused this issues being, issues like increased anxiety and social isolation to get aggravated. The base material for my study was the study by Mohammad Ahmad Hamad and Turki Mahdi Al-Kharni, titled Psychosocial Effects of Social Media on the Saudi Society During the Coronavirus Disease 2019 Pandemic. And their key takeaway was that while more use of social media was associated with less loneliness among those in their middle or older years, it was associated with more loneliness among those in their younger years. This resonates closely with the findings of my study. Although they have taken the Saudi society as a whole, I have tried to take women social media users exclusively, and I have found out the results, or I have surveyed 268 women social media users, and I have tried to get my findings from them. So my motivation to conduct this study is basically three major factors. It is that one is that there is a lack of significant studies regarding women, or especially the mental behavior and well-being of women. And moreover, there is a lack of women researchers globally. According to the UN, there is lesser than 30% of women researchers. Secondly, there is an overpowering of social media in our lives, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. And thirdly, it is my keenness to, bring out a positive change in the lives of women through my field of studies, that is media and communication. Now coming to the methodology. I had done a quantitative survey of 268 women social media users, as I have already mentioned. The data collection was done through a quantitative method of survey. The survey questionnaires mostly contained multiple choice questions that try to understand the impact of pandemic on social media use of women, the type of interaction they have online, and their overall mental well-being during and before the pandemic. And there were a few close-ended questions, that is the yes or no questions. Then a few questions towards the end were descriptive also. And one of the question was a 4-point Likert scale that ranged from, rarely or none of the times to always or most of the times. The data was collected through Google Forms and circulated through major social media platforms like WhatsApp, Facebook, etc. It was exclusively addressed to women social media users, and I could attain data from 268 women social media users who were mainly students, working women, housewives, and retired women also. So all of whom were above 18 years of age. But the majority of the data, or nearly 50% of the respondents were of the 18 to 25 age range. Also, I combined the generalized anxiety disorder scale, that is the GAD-7 anxiety scale, and the Center for Epidemiological Studies depression scale, that is the CES-D10 depression scale. I combined them to make a unique question so that I could analyze the pattern or the frequency of symptoms of anxiety, depression, and social isolation. This is actually a very generalized study because I had time constraints, regarding the submission of my thesis. But I have tried to give justice to the study. Now coming to the key findings. Nearly half of the respondents, as I have already mentioned, were of 18 to 25 years. We can say that the mean age of the the whole sample was from 30 to 33, because it's an open-ended data. Like we have taken the last group as 40 to above. And most of the respondents use social media for 1 to 3 hours. And most of the respondents were users of Instagram and Facebook with mainly single profiles. Those having more than one profile were users of Instagram, and closely followed by users of Facebook. We could find that the pandemic led to an increase in social media usage, and for most of the respondents, the pandemic-induced lockdown, gave them more free time, and the work, if it was academic or the other kind of work, it was all online, and this led to more free time, and they could use social media more. And when we asked them if it had impacted, like the COVID-19 had impacted their social media usage, or impacted in an increase in their social media usage, they said that it indeed did impact in an aggravation of emotions. And like our chief guest of the day, Sri Rajiv K. Arora, said, social media, there was a tsunami of misinformation that was circulating on social media, and this had led to rising stress and anxiety in people. Then the main finding was that the respondents who use social media for more than 4 hours, they were mostly the age group of 18 to 25-year-old women. And it was found that the participants of this age group had frequent symptoms of anxiety, social isolation, and depression. And a significant amount of them, responded with cutting of contacts with people on social media during the pandemic. But the results were actually polls about, because the people who were, or the respondents who were of more than 33 years or above, they were finding it as a very positive change. They use social media only for a lesser time, and most of them are associated with having experienced happier feelings, and they were able to make and maintain more contacts. For older women, increase in social media usage was they were really able to divert themselves from the social isolation, the depressing situations that were pertaining during the pandemic. At first, most of them said that the social media content did not impact their psychosocial well-being because they were referring to, creative content that were not relating to the pandemic-related content. In the latter part of the questionnaire, they addressed those things and they said that it was indeed stress-inducing, the pandemic-related information. And there were also so many other reasons that than social media that affected such emotions. And there were mainly issues like gender bias, uncertainty pertaining to the existing situation, unemployment, etc. And during the surface research and towards the end of the survey questionnaire, there were descriptive questions, as I mentioned, and they were able to, they told me while this thing happened, they had mentioned that there were issues like gender bias and all that they were experiencing before also, before the pandemic also they were experiencing, but it was very aggravated during the pandemic because all of them had to, live inside these four walls of their home, and women had to not only, deal with their own work-related stress or their own personal this thing, but also that of their households. So it was very increased and very aggravated. In conclusion, the pandemic and resulting social media use has indeed had an adverse impact in most of the women social media users, according to my study. And but the older women found it as a solace or as a diversion of their existing tension and stresses. It is my study can be viewed as a foundation of studies to to get into a deeper study into the pattern of impact of social media use. The limitation is that limitation of my study is that
can you please conclude it?
Yeah,
just wind up in 30 seconds.
Okay, so the limitation is that it was there was so much time constraint, and I could only gather 200 participants. But if we take into consideration different communities, and we can do more on this issue. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shalini, for your presentation, and I'm happy to see that you have used certain scales also, and I'm sure this is a good study, and we love to read the full version of your study with the full finding and data analysis. Now I'm going to invite my dear friend, a senior and wonderful human being, actually, because I'm going to invite Mr. Jupinder Singh ji. He is a special correspondent with the Tribune, and he has authored 5 books now. Now the number has gone to 5, and he has contributed 2 chapters on crime reporting and middle writing in the book titled Beat Reporting. That is being published by Sage Group in India, and that book was edited by our very dear Professor Surbhi Daya, and the book launch is also is scheduled on 16th. And Jupinder Jeet has done a lot numbers of many investigative stories, and the most popular one was with the with the Shahid Bhagat Singh's pistol, and with which the great martyr had killed a British police officer in 1928, and the pistol was missing for 85 years. He penned down the journey in a book titled Discovery of Bhagat Singh's Pistol and His Ahimsa. He also co-authored Justice for Jassi, which is based on real life love story between a Canadian-born Indian girl, Jassi, and Mithu, lovely peasant of Jagraon in Ludhiana, and eventually honor killing of Jassi at the behest of her mother. So I welcome you, sir. Now over to you for your talk.
Thank you, Dr. Rubel. It's such a pleasure to listening to young students and to such accomplished academicians. And it's good morning to you, Mr. Andrew McLahan and Professor Devrat and our chief guest, and very nice papers presented by our young colleagues, Aisha and Shalini. And I was actually smiling because when Aisha was talking about the social media posts and how we are addicted to it and how we count our likes, I was actually doing that. I had posted something in the evening, and so how true these studies are, and it's really very befitting, and how at subconscious level we're doing it. And my special welcome and my greatest regards for Professor Maan, my journalism teacher, and whatever I'm going to say or whatever I'm doing to journalism is all taught by my teachers, especially Professor Maan, because he was a teacher at the level of a friend, a wise friend, and he was the only one we used to show our write-ups. And I remember that one of the medal I had written on Mowgli, the jungle boy. So I had showed it to Professor Maan, who edited it and corrected it and gave me some good lessons on English grammar also. And since then, we have met a number of times, but I'm so happy to share this space with him. I think I have got 10 minutes, and when I'm close to it, Dr. Rubel, please give me a cue so that I can write. See, my generation of journalists are, I would say, quite lucky one who have witnessed this transition in media. When I started journalism, we had a typewriter, and now we even file stories on WhatsApp. The first time I had to send photos with my story, it was an investigation piece on how we have two states here, Punjab and Haryana. I'm talking about two states. There are several states. So Punjab had sale of liquor was allowed. Haryana had prohibition. So people from Haryana were crossing over to Punjab to drink liquor, and it was a trouble for the villagers. So I did an investigative piece on them. I clicked their pictures and all that. And when I wrote this story, it was sent by the teleprinter, that old big gurgling machine and all that. And so, and normally I was thinking that the story will be approved after 3-4 days or something. And when I got a call from my, my news editor on the landline phone, no mobile phones, late 1990s. And he said, the story is being used on front page, send pictures. I said, send pictures? How do I send pictures? Teleprinted? I mean, there was not even a thought that someday we will send not one picture, but 100 of pictures in 1 microsecond, It's just 20 years, not much of time. And, I had to board a bus to go to, I was working in Patiala, which is about 65 kilometers from the head office. I had to board a bus, reach my office in 2 hours, and then it took about 6 hours for all that thing to set up, which now our newspaper deadline is 1:30 a.m. and we can take stories at 1:25 a.m., even 5 minutes before the print. So that is the advancement of technology my generation of journalists have seen. There have been some jumping to an entirely different topic of media literacy, which Mr. Andrew, I must confess that I wasn't much aware of, though we have been a journalist, and unfortunately we are not academic journalists, and very unfortunately in India we don't have this practice of institutional facility of updating or upgrading our academic skills. With the media scene is entirely different. Here it is more of survival than a reformatory movement, very few journalists actually get the chance to be in media to change society. It's more of surviving in the office. Very bad politics. Politics is of course everywhere, but total, it's a cutthroat competition with your rivals also, and very mean competition also. And the advent of TV, which is, I will say, very kiddish form of journalism, which is more noise and entertainment, has had its bad impact on print media also. When I say institutional, issues, the term called, I mean, media literacy, we are just being media literate. We have not gone beyond it. That is very sad part. And it is, I mean, personally, you have to make a lot of effort, and it is all personal effort of a journalist to do it. There is no institutional support for it. In fact, I'll be surprised, you will be surprised to know, Dr. Rubel, that the Jassi murder case, which I'm following for 21 years, the moment I list that story, the first question is, I will leave it, man, just report it when the court will have the final order. No human interest angle, nothing, that is the decadence which has come up here. If a journalist wants to follow a story, he has to really struggle for getting this space. He also mentioned about some of my investigative journalism. I was quite fortunate that I could pursue it. I was very dogmatic about it. And so this is the new book which has come up. I hope Dr. Rubel doesn't mind. So the book has a collection, about 50 journalists have written chapters on practical journalism. So I have written on crime reporting and investigative reporting and middle writing. Very happy to share it with you, Professor Maan. Such an honor. So when I talk about investigative journalism, as I was saying, it is left to the reporter. There is very less guidance available here. So when I was, trying to research, Bhagat Singh is a great Indian martyr. He had killed a British police officer for the country's freedom in 1928, and the weapon with which he killed him is a relic. It's a relic associated with him, and it was missing. So I found it in 2017 after a lot of research, and for which I had to, get some documents from Lahore and other places, and the Indian president letter, and, communication with Punjab police, with border security force, and had to travel to Delhi and to Indore, about 2000 kilometers. And eventually I found it. And then, you realize, like you use the word, the medium is the story. So my tracing that pistol was an event for me, right? But the medium and how I reached it became the journey, and that became the bigger story for me, not for any media outlet. And that's why I brought out that book, that, how as a journalist, you can relentlessly pursue something, even if you don't have institutional support, because then you are contributing and making history for that. I can go on for like hours on that subject, but I must, keep jumping on other issues also. There was very nice, when you talk about media literacy, like going beyond it. And very interesting thing which is happening in Indian media is that we are writing more about dead people now than alive. You will not find human interest stories. If there is a, some literary function, you will find mentions only about film stars who have come there. You will not find any, like, the kind of academic paper which you have presented, and you were talking that, the first there were 8 or 9 chapters and then 26 chapters. And to read that book, you actually need one full semester. Unfortunately, we have not come across this concept here. And you will find obituaries, 8 column obituaries, but very less space for alive people. What are they doing? How are they living? Even in pandemic, we were all mainly reduced to stories about uh, analysis of data, or the stories about migrant laborers, mainly. Not about common people, how they were handling it, and now so much of scare also. I wish we had more such tools. Saying that, it's not that there were no wonderful stories, but what Indian journalism lacks is that we are just doing the basic thing of reporting, the what, where, when, why, and how. We are not going beyond it. We are, a newspaper should be a total mirror of life around you, which unfortunately is not happening here. And I wish there are more academic, interactions like this with our bosses and with other, active journalists also who can learn this. So I will also share one more. I have got 10 minutes, I think. So I will try to utilize it by jumping to this thing. So one of the presenters talked about the impact of social media, and it is huge, both positive and both negative. I'll give you an instance that, I represent a newspaper which is like the biggest circulated in this region. In North India, the Tribune is the highest circulated newspaper. But the news, when it is printed in Tribune, is automatically circulated. But we get a lot of more hits when we put it on social media. And it depends on who we tag and how we post it. That is very important. So that is the positive use of social media. There is negative also. And for that, I'll give you a very recent example. Everyone is aware about the farmers' protest against the central farm laws in India. And the protest is recently got over about 3 days ago, and it was for more than a year. And during this last month, there was a very unfortunate and rather savage incident where the farmers were protected by Nihang Sikhs. Mr. Andrew, Nihang Sikhs are those very heavily clad and armed, blue turban Sikhs who carry swords and spears. Still, they are living in the previous world only. And you must Google about Nihangs. I'm sure you know about them. So these Nihangs are actually protecting the farmers at the protest sites in Delhi. And, there are 8 different groups of Nihangs there. So one of the group killed a man, accusing him of sacrilege. They said that he had entered into our camp and he had desecrated our holy book. So what, they chopped off his hand and they cut his leg and they hung him from a pole, which was actually a police barricade, and that man bled to death. It was such, and the videos were shared on social media, the photos were shared on social media, and it was so disturbing in this world. And something is happening like that. It is so barbaric. And so this thing had very bad impact on the farmers movement, which is kind of a people's movement against the present government, against the farm laws. So fortunately, I got hold of a photo in which that Nihang group is dining with central BJP ministers. Two ministers representing Indian government, and they were accusing farmers of being anti-national and all that. So when you see them, the Nihangs, dining with the BJP leaders, so that actually gave a different theory, different dimensions to the entire incident and the alleged conspiracy of that. Such was the impact of that some people say that even the farmer movements won because of that story. But the impact of social media here. So my newspaper, the English newspaper, goes online at about 3 a.m. in the morning. And we have a Punjabi newspaper, which is our mother language here, which our news are printed in Punjabi, Hindi, and English newspaper. They are translated. And so that Punjabi newspaper goes online at midnight, stroke of midnight, 12. And at 1 minute past midnight, first time in my career, that story went viral. That story was shared so many times that people tell me, and even on my Facebook wall, that was the only story which was shared about 20 times, 20 different posts. And around 1 a.m., some journalist from Canada contacted me, found my number. They made, they contacted the editor of Punjabi Tribune. And there was quite a storm. I mean, for 2 hours, I did not understand what was happening. And the English newspaper had not gone online yet. It was just a language spoken by about 5 crore people all over the world. And that newspaper was translated, was analyzed, and it was something. I mean, the power of social media in those few minutes were, that was my realization, and not just mine, but of my office also. And of course, it elated us. We were very joyful that we are getting so much traffic on our website and on our e-paper. At the same time, I was scared. I was scared that one wrong word, one wrong story in my newspaper, and God forbidding by my hand, can actually cause so much of bloodshed, can do anything. I mean that was the moment which I am still trying to recover from, that how positive and how negative it is. And but yes, surely it has made us more responsible. That is such positive impact of social media, that it has helped in such rapid circulation of a story worldwide at a time when I had to travel 60 kilometers in a bus to give my photos for printing, to in 60 seconds the story has traveled worldwide, and it is still being talked about. At the same time, yeah.
And I seen that story on Punjabi Tribune at 4 early in the morning, and I
Yeah.
immediately messaged him that.
Yeah, he did, yes. You were so kind. And so there is the negative impact of social media also. That some persons who were unhappy with the story, whether they were pro BJP guys or pro Khalistani guys, so so they like picked all my photos on my Facebook. At one point, I was interviewing the Delhi Chief Minister Kejriwal. At the other, I was interviewing Akali Chief Minister. So they linked me to those. Okay, he is interviewing Kejriwal, so he is sympathizer of Aam Aadmi Party, and that is why he is writing as BJP. And people circulated that also. People who wanted to trash my story and trash the farmers movement, they made this photo viral that I was pro Kejriwal, whereas I was saying that I am a professional journalist. I will interview a police officer, a chief minister, a gangster, a criminal, everyone. That's my job. It doesn't make me that I am their party line. There were some very interesting thing is that a very handsome gentleman in America, who is also a social activist. He had met some religious leader, and he had some resemblance with me, and he his photos were also viral, saying that I am with this religious leader, some religious leader who is on the hit list of the Khalistanis. So I had to clarify that also, that I am not this guy. But thankfully, to this world of social media, there are so many websites whose only job is to tell you which news is real and which news is fake. We never thought that there will be a time when we will have news portals indulging only in this. That means there is so much of fake things being circulated on social media, because of which we require these fake news portals who analyze the photos, who say that if it is morphed or not, who go into its the origin of the photo. I mean this This is maddening. This is so crazy over here, and it is totally unregulated.
That's why we are talking media literacy, the need of
Yes,
media
that
literacy.
makes it so important, so important. I wish that I'm so happy for this. For giving me opportunity, and so happy I learned so many new terms from Mr. Andrew, and I've seen your link and I will read your paper and hopefully I understand it because I don't know. I have to file some stories also now. Something has happened again on that Punjab politics is boiling, and it is such a pleasure, Dr. Rubal. I'm so happy that you have invited me. I hope you will invite me again. Thank
It's
you.
always
Thank you, everyone.
to be with you. And my association with you is, it's a long time back. We interacted through one Facebook post where he posted some analysis and I also commented. And then we discussed. And this is how the technology is shaping us and how making us close, and we are coming and discussing now. Mr. Andrew is sitting in Canada. He's able to join us. The student from the different localities, they are able to join it. So this is the ecology is being made by the advent of these technologies. The more we are adapting these technologies. Thank you very much, Japinder ji. So now I may request Professor Mann, though due to some technical problem, he could not join it once again. There are some problems in his area. He said that due to the internet, this low connectivity, he is unable to join. So I must request by the permission of this session here, sir, I may be allowed to take Professor Mann over a phone call, and he'll be speaking through audio only.
Yes,
Reason he
yes,
was
yes.
much
We
impressed.
can do that. We can do
Thank
that
you, sir. He
because
was much
he
impressed with the
he's the.
idea of beyond media literacy, and he messaged me. I wanted to speak about it,
Mhm.
and
We would like to listen to him, and he is the important speaker of today's program.
and I'm dialing his number if I am able to connect him. हाँ जी sir. Sir, may I take you to the panel? I am online now, and all the speakers, and with the permission of chair, so we can take you through this audio. Sir, now, sir, you may speak now, sir. I request Utkarsh to facilitate Professor Mann with the eminent media award, the Lifetime Achievement Award for his contribution in the media education, what he has done. I request Utkarsh ji kindly play his award. Sir, thank you very much for your time. Now, I request you to deliver your talk through my phone and this Zoom platform.
Okay. Thank you, Google. Thank you so much.
I'm sure you all are able to listen him now.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Hello?
You are audible.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Google, and very good evening to all of my friends and colleagues and students here, and very good morning to Andrew McEwan. In fact, I was feeling very excited to be amongst you to this online conference. But as Dr. Rubal might have told you, that there were certain technical hitches. So I was reminded of Shannon Weaver model when we were studying that what are different kinds of disruptions when we communicate with each other. And one of that was he used to refer was technical error. So this is a technical hitch which is prohibiting me to be in front of you and talking to you straight in a video manner. But there are some difficulties, so I'm compelled to speak through my phone, and I hope that I will be able to do some justice to so, because my gestures won't be available, my expressions won't be available, which are very fundamental in a teaching process. But anyway, we have to compromise in certain conditions. So anyway, in fact, I was just considering about this topic, that was decided by you, chosen by you, that beyond media literacy. In fact, I was just thinking that before talking about media literacy, it would be better in the prevailing circumstances where we see our traditional mainstream media, particularly TV channels, what harm they are doing to the system, to the relevance and to the high profile and very esteemed the status which the media, which the press has attained and known as the fourth estate. So I think the status, the image and the dignity of this fourth estate has been lowered to the abysmal level because of what we have been seeing on television, particularly during the elections and during the recent farmers movement. Anyway, so I would rather, in future, if I find some time, I would like to talk about media illiteracy before talking about the media literacy. So anyway, by talking about this subject, so there are three keywords in this topic: that beyond media and literacy. So in fact, when I was going through some literature on Google and certain other platforms in some other books, so I found that literacy is rated as very kind of a word which refers to taking away from the antiquated models of teaching in classrooms, traditional system of teaching, and this refers to that. So my question to all of my friends will be, or is at the moment, that possible to talk about media literacy as a concept, and then talking about beyond media literacy, is it viable to talk and to discuss this concept with our students in classrooms? Because we have been finding in my university, we are getting students from remote areas and villages and all that. So I don't think that it is possible, or we can think of talking about media literacy in classrooms or in seminars, on or in conferences. I think that we need to have some special exclusive training workshops talk about this very important cardinal principle of acquiring more and more significance, particularly when this thing has been highlighted during the farmers' movement. That media, a major chunk of the mainstream media, they have been crying hoarse and barking like dogs and, like street dogs and like stray dogs, ignoring the dignity of this fourth estate. And when we watch that their bosses in the corporate sector and the political portfolios, we have been finding that how do they subjugate themselves and to those mighty forces. And this is because of, I think, this is my perception, I may be wrong, that this is because of lack of training of media literacy to them. Okay? And before that, I think they are not trained even academically. What we talk of literacy, they are not even trained at the academic level in the universities and in the colleges when we have been students and studying certain books and all that. I don't think these people have gone through or studied any kind of material which talks about the ethics and moral values of this very pious and noble profession of journalism and mass communication. So what do I feel is that this aspect of media literacy has to be, taken into consideration from two aspects. One is media literacy for the audience, and second is media literacy for the journalist or for the media persons. And when I specifically talk about the farmers movement, so this has generated quite, even including me, I think they have generated a certain kind of social awareness about, at least about the agriculture products and all that, their marketing, and even I did not, used to understand this concept of MSP for this movement. And our farm leaders, they have behaved in a very intelligent manner, and that is the reason basically that the mighty government was thrown on the back foot. So this concept, in fact, is very important to be taught. In fact, we all the vice chancellors and all the high level academicians, they have been talking about change of course curriculum, every year. But I find, despite my best efforts, I have not been able to convince my colleagues in my department, in my center, that they should, they have to adapt themselves to the newly emerging trends in mass communication. And I have seen even certain senior professors in mass communication that they are referring to certain things which have just become obsolete. And they are referring they are referring to those outdated models. No, those things, for example, when we talk about hypodermic needle model, or when we talk about Berenson's model, and two-step flow theory, and ATX model, and all, these things are quite difficult. But in fact, I think they are either unaware of new developments which are happening in the theory and the research of mass communication. They don't want to study, they don't want to adapt themselves to the newly changing trends in the mass communication, and the outcomes or the findings of research at the global level. Because they will have to study, and then it becomes very difficult. As we have been talking yesterday or day before, that there are tendency among the teachers to first read and then communicate. That thing is vanishing. Or at least, I'm not talking about all the teachers, but majority of the teachers, they remain just complacent with what was being taught by them 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and they are referring to the same course and all that. So basically, I think, first of all, we have to think about, when we talk about literacy, for example, so it is a very general term to my mind. In fact, when we talk about literacy, we have to take into account, when we talk of India, for example, we cannot compare Canada with India or America with India as far as the literacy rate is concerned in actuality. So the government forward that there is 87% literacy rate in the urban areas and 70% in the rural areas. But can you imagine this kind of falsehood which is being spread? When you walk on television, even I have been to UK during last election and all that, then I was talking to certain people, certain women. they do not know anything about what is happening around them. They are just satisfied or contented with if they are getting just 200 rupees or 500 rupees a month, they say it's okay. I mean, we are getting food, we are getting basic amenities which are sufficient according to their requirements. So basically, when we talk of this concept of beyond media literacy, so first I think we have to talk about literacy. First, we have to talk about literacy and then media literacy, and then we have to go beyond media literacy. In fact, I think we are falling short of media literacy. So, in fact, these some of the very good social channels which we are on, witness to, that they have played a very good role during this farmers' educational movement. Have certain YouTube channels or social media channels or is not being available, I think this movement has failed. So they have risen to the occasion to help, and even if some of us, if we have watched what those farm leaders, they have been talking about some channels, social media channels. So they said, had you not been there, we would have failed. So in fact, we have taken this concept of media literacy from many angles. From the mainstream media, from the social media, from the literate media person, from the illiterate media person, from the semi-literate person, and similarly, when we talk of we have to take in, last I would like to say, that we have to take into account the demographic level and the psychographic variables of the audience when we talk of the research on this very particular subject. Because these talks and discourses by certain political leaders, they have widened certain gaps. May it be digital divide, may it be economic divide, may it be social divide, may it be cultural divide. These have been deepened further. And when we listen to our leaders, they are talking about election. But even I was listening to our Prime Minister saying yesterday that he was talking all about the Muslim rulers. But all those things have gone. So now we have to concentrate on the present circumstances, present situation, present condition. I mean, no leader from any party, they are not talking about the development issues. They are not talking about something positive which is happening. They are all talking bullshit and talking about negativity and dividing the people into different castes, into different religions, into different races, and trying to use all these things to cash and to cash in on and just garner votes for themselves so that they can form government or reform government. So my idea basically is that we have to talk about this subject in very depth to know what literacy means, what media literacy means, and when we understand these two concepts, and then we have to study these concepts, if you talk about Canada or America or Russia or other developed countries, and when we compare them to India, so do we think that we are at the same level? So, a lot of discussion is required to be done on this area before we arrive.
True, sir. True, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Thanks a lot. Thank you very much for your kind word. Now, this is due to the technical problem. We had to take him through this phone call. Now, I request the session chair, Professor Devrat ji, to summarize it. But before that, I must take an opportunity to tell you all about his expertise, that he's a professor in electronic media. He has written several books on electronic media, and particularly in context of Indian channels. And he has a couple of very good publication into his account. And he's studying the Indian perspective of communication, new media and visual media. and he has been the dean of the department and head of the department, and he worked with the several the top universities where the mass communication is being taught in the country, like Makhalal Chaturvedi University of Journalism and Mass Communication. He had an honor to work with the Institute of Mass Communication and Media Technology at Kurukshetra University. So over to you, Devrat sir.
Thank you, Dr. Rubal. We are running out of time, and we are very late as per our schedule. I'll not take much time. Good evening, everyone present in this webinar. Thank you very much for listening for so long. And it's been nice, enriching while listening to all the speakers, all the presenters. Actually, let's be brief. Whenever I listen to this term, media literacy we are talking about, I get a feeling of a divide between media literate and media illiterate, because we have been struggling to get out of the clutch of illiteracy for a very long period. And even today, 30% of the India's population can't read and write. It seems like a divide between literate and illiterate. And this terms gives an impression that there is a class which is elite and literate in terms of understanding of media, and there is an illiterate poor class also which needs to be educated, which needs media literacy. Actually, I would prefer, this is my opinion, I would emphasize that I would prefer using the term audiences empowerment. As media expert, how can we enable the media consumers and understanding of their messages? And that is more important. That is that should be the concern of media professors. Actually, when Marshall McLuhan says medium is masses, he is more concerned about the ecology and environment created by the media. We listened to Aisha when she was discussing about photo posting habits. So of course, Instagram and many other applications, they have created such an environment that they have changed subconsciously. They have changed the habits, human habits, lifestyle, and we are not aware about that. Same is with Shalini also, when she was talking about psychological well-being and social media. Social media, apart from, besides the content of social media, this media has impacted the psychological well-being. And when Japinder Jeet was also discussing about the information ecology, how fast the photograph or the information circulated, he was surprised, shocked to observe that. So he is also surprised to see the new kind of information ecology that has been created by the digital revolution during last 20 years. Actually, the entire media technology, in Indian context I am talking, media technology formats and structures all have been adopted from the West, and there had been no debate on media literacy in India until recent. Media literacy as a concept or issue of debate in Indian context is a recent phenomena. And I feel that there is a need to look upon increasing concentration of media ownership, which in India especially, because it's creating a huge impact on the overall media environment, which is not visible. No one is talking about that. We are more concerned about the content, which is visible. And there are structural aspects of media bias also. Now we are discussing about surveillance capitalism or critical thinking. We need to discuss about role of civil society and regulations also, because when the entire 5G environment or surveillance capitalism, when we are discussing, that means you like it or not, you are part of that broad ecosystem, and you are under surveillance. And even if you are educated, you are not able to understand the broader game, actually, what is happening, what is being controlled, what is being watched by these big conglomerates, or we can say media giants. So in that situation, media regulations also have important role to play, and this is not going to be achieved only by teaching few lectures or conducting few workshops on media literacy. Media literacy, in a way, is an old concept, and now we need strong regulations also, regulations, and there should be some civil society initiatives also to safeguard the rights and interests of the media consumers. So that is all from my side, and it was a wonderful session for all of us. My all appreciations for the GMEC team, and special thanks to Dr. Rubal Kanodia for inviting me to this program. Thank you very much. Over to.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. I must say thanks to all the panelists from the beginning, Shri Rajiv Kiroda ji, who gave his precious time. I know in broadcasting, for a whole day he's working, and still I can see that he's there in the office, and it's 9:30, and he has given his full time. I am really thankful to you, sir, and I must convey my thanks to Andrew McLuhan for his gracious presence. I requested him, and he accepted the invite and introduced the concept of beyond media literacy. And I ensure you, Andrew, that for your this book, you must be getting some chapters and some essays from India. And Professor Devrat Singh is also working on media literacy concept, and I am also reading this concept from the last 7-8 years, and now we have started producing some publication in this domain. So it's come what may with the media literacy or the information media literacy. And nowadays we have started working with the inoculation interventions to stop the exposure, to reduce the exposure of misinformation. And I must convey thanks to Professor Gurmeet Man. He was here, but due to some technical problem, he could not join the whole session, but he conveyed his words of wisdom and his discourse through mobile phone and with the combination of Zoom. So thank you, Professor Man. And I'm also thankful to Professor Devrat sir and Jupinder ji, that who who have given their precious time, and particularly Professor Devrat sir, because I know that spending whole day in the university, attending lots of meeting, and being a senior functionary in the university system, and continuing this talk for another 2 hours, so it's difficult to be there. But I guess the content which we received today was amazing content. So I must thanks you all the participants, and these the two young presenters, Shalini and Aisha, both have done a wonderful job. And I'm happy to see that at the students level you have started participating in the conferences and start presenting your research. Aisha, your topic was very impressive, and Shalini, your findings were very impressive. And we may continue further developing these studies into full paper in future. We may collaborate for developing these studies and getting them published with the good journals. And I must convey thanks to the audience also. The students, they spend their time attending this program. And I'm conveying, last but not the least, to the president of GMEC, Professor KG Suresh, and General Secretary Professor Ujjwal K. Chaudhary, and Mr. Dr. Uma Shankar Pandey for their presence in this program. Thank you very much, you all, for joining. Thanks a lot. Thank you very much. And with this hope that once again we will connect, we will meet once again, and hopefully that they let this pandemic to go off, and we will meet virtually also. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.